Ring around the Rosie, pocket full of posies, almost everyone assumes this children's rhyme is secretly about the Black Death. But that theory has a serious problem. Folklorists studying the Opie collection have never found any printed version of this rhyme before the 1790, nearly 100 years after London's last major plague outbreak. That gap alone means the plague explanation was almost certainly invented long after the rhyme already existed, not the other way around. So if the scariest nursery rhyme story isn't true, what actually happened to these songs? And why do so many of us believe things about them that were never real? In the next few minutes, you'll see exactly how 4 of the most famous nursery rhymes in the English language got their popular, hidden meanings, and which ones actually hold up. Nursery rhymes were passed down by word of mouth for generations before anyone ever wrote them down on paper. That oral gap is the reason their true origins are almost impossible to prove. And it's also the reason so many dramatic explanations were able to attach themselves later. Take Mary, Mary, quite contrary, with her garden of silver bells and cockle shells. Pop culture has linked this one to 2 very different queens, either Mary Tudor, known as Bloody Mary, or Mary Queen of Scots. The Bloody Mary version claims the silver bells and cockle shells were actually torture instruments in disguise, hidden inside a children's song. It's a chilling idea, but according to Opie scholarship, there is no solid documentary evidence connecting this rhyme to either Mary at all. It's a theory that spread because it's memorable, not because historians ever found the paperwork to back it up. Then there's Jack and Jill, tumbling down that hill to fetch a pail of water. Some have claimed this rhyme secretly describes the beheadings of King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette during the French Revolution. But the rhyme was already printed in an English chapbook in 1795, and most etymologists read it as exactly what it looks like, a simple cautionary tale about children and a hill. The French Revolution theory came later, attached to an old rhyme because the timing felt dramatic, not because it was ever documented. Here's where it gets more interesting, because not every rhyme is a false trail. Ba ba, black sheep, is thought by some historians to reference the medieval wool tax under King Edward I. That connection is still debated among historians, but it's treated far more seriously than the plague or execution theories because it fits the economic reality of the era. Then there's Pop Goes the Weasel, which has one of the strongest documented word trails of any nursery rhyme. In 19th century London slang, pop meant to pawn something, and weasel is believed to reference either a tailor's flat iron or slang for a coat. Put together, the rhyme reads as a coded description of poverty, where someone keeps pawning their coat or their tools just to get by. That's actual lexical evidence, not a guess dressed up as history, and it's why folklorists give this one far more credibility than the others. There's also Georgie Porgy, sometimes linked to a specific historical courtier, with George Villiers, the Duke of Buckingham, as one candidate. But that evidence is circumstantial at best, resting on a shared first name and a reputation, not on documented proof. So why does the plague theory for ring-a-ring-o roses still feel so believable to millions of people today? Because it's specific, it's visual, and it connects a children's song to something everyone already knows was real and terrifying. A rosy rash, a posy of herbs to cover the smell of disease, sneezing, and then we all fall down reads like a perfect death sequence once someone points it out. That's exactly how folk etymology works. A compelling story gets attached to an old rhyme, and it spreads faster than the boring, honest answer. The honest answer is that nobody alive today can say for certain what ring-a-ring-o roses originally meant. No printed evidence exists connecting it to the plague, and the 1790's first appearance date makes the timeline almost impossible to defend. It's not that the rhyme has no history, it's that its real history got buried under a more exciting, invented one. This pattern repeats across almost every shocking hidden meaning list about nursery rhymes you've ever scrolled past online. Someone notices a rhyme sounds ominous, links it to a real historical tragedy, and the theory spreads because nobody bothers checking the paper trail. Meanwhile, the genuinely well-supported ones, like the wool tax reference in Ba Ba Black Sheep, or the pawnbroking slang in Pop Goes the Weasel, get far less attention. They're not dramatic enough. There's no execution, no plague, no queen, just ordinary economic life from centuries ago. And that's really the bigger story here, not which rhymes are secretly dark, but how legends attach themselves to things we sing to children without ever questioning them. These songs survived hundreds of years, passed from parent to child, with no written record at all. By the time anyone finally wrote them down, the original context, the joke, the local reference, or the person it was about, was often already lost. That blank space is exactly where later generations filled in their own explanations. Some careful, some wildly exaggerated. The Opie collection, put together by Ayanna and Peter Opie in the mid-20th century, remains one of the only serious academic attempts to trace these rhymes back through print history. Their research is the reason we can say with confidence that "Ring a Ring O' Roses" doesn't appear before the 1790s. It's also the reason we can say the Mary Tudor torture theory has no documentary backing, no matter how often it gets repeated. Real history research doesn't always give you the most exciting answer, but it gives you the truthful one. And in this case, the truthful answer is still fascinating, just not in the way most online lists want you to believe. It tells you something about how folklore actually spreads, attaching real fears, real politics, and real poverty to simple songs that were never written down with an explanation attached. So next time you hear "Pop Goes the Weasel," you're not just hearing a nonsense rhyme, you're hearing 19th century London slang about pawning your coat to survive. And next time someone tells you "Ring a Ring O' Roses" is definitely about the plague, you now know that claim doesn't survive contact with the actual print record. 4 rhymes, 4 completely different levels of evidence, and only 2 of them, the wool tax and the pawnbroking rhyme, actually hold up under real scrutiny. The other 2, the plague song and the French Revolution rhyme, are stories that got attached decades or centuries after the fact. That gap between what feels true and what's actually documented is the real story behind almost every hidden meaning list you've ever seen about children's songs. It's not that these rhymes are boring without the dramatic backstory. It's that the real backstory is about oral tradition, class, and slang, not secret executions. Nursery rhymes survived because they were catchy, easy to remember, and passed from child to child for generations before anyone wrote them down. That's also exactly why their true origins are so hard to pin down, and why invented explanations had so much room to take hold. If there's one rhyme from this list you want us to dig even deeper into, with a full breakdown of every documented theory around it, tell us in the comments. There's a video coming up next that breaks down other everyday sayings you use constantly, without ever knowing where they actually came from. If today's video changed how you'll listen to nursery rhymes from now on, that video is the natural next step. It applies this exact same fact-check-first approach to phrases you probably say every single week without a second thought. Go watch it next, because the gap between what people assume is true and what's actually documented is even bigger than you'd expect. Click through now and see how many of those sayings you've been repeating for years without ever knowing the real story.